We got our email system shut down by an email provider because they didn't work with us. We knew the banks didn't like us. We knew these people wouldn't like us, but like our email provider didn't even like us. And yeah, we kind of then realized the entire world is against us and no one wants to see us win.
GM, and welcome back to Solana Floor. We've got a really interesting one for you today that certainly took me by surprise, because if you're anything like me and you've never really put much thought into interacting with a spicy, raunchy AI bot that's actually the clone of a real-life celebrity, you're about to spend the next while doing exactly that. To make sense of this emerging trend, I'm joined by Nick today, who's building Oh.xyz. It's an adult entertainment platform that's sort of like OnlyFans, but it's also on-chain, but it's AI agents instead of human creators. All very interesting stuff. So Nick, GM, great to have you on.
Thank you for having me. Excited to get in.
Absolutely. So let's start with a very high level overview. Nick, where did the idea come from and what are you building?
The idea is kind of intertwined with my own background, but my background was essentially marketing. So I ran a marketing agency for 4 years, and it really is like an interesting launch pad essentially for new businesses, because if you think of like the function of a marketing agency, we get parachuted into all these different sectors, kind of have to work out what the narrative is, what's good about it, what's bad about it, and kind of work out where our clients at the time could fit into that. And over time, we are basically being approached by more and more crypto projects. There's probably late 21, and so kind of peak NFT mania. And yeah, started getting deeper into it in a professional sense and liked a lot of the technology and some of the stuff that was going on, but really felt like there was a gap in the market for a truly like consumer focused project. So I know it's like a semi meme, or a lot of people say it, but that kind of aim of onboarding the next billion users, we felt like there was a more effective way of doing that than what a lot of people were focusing on. So we tried to come up with an idea that both was kind of housed within an industry that we felt touched billions of people, no pun intended, and also had like its biggest issues solved by the industry, by the technology as well. And yeah, the kind of obvious answer to us was the spicy space or the adult space, but more specifically the intersection with creators as well. So we essentially saw this as an opportunity where you could house the technology more in like a background kind of role rather than being like a kind of full crypto project and how you market yourself necessarily to wider audiences. You could like take advantage of the technology and the benefits that it brings, but house it in something which, yeah, appeals to billions of people. So the idea that we came up with was essentially, it's kind of a bit of an ecosystem, but like the first product that we have is called Oh.xyz. Easiest way to describe it is AI OnlyFans, I guess. So sort of creator application where users can meet different characters, fully AI generated and powered. Some are digital twins of real world creators. Some are completely synthetic characters, and they can essentially pay to interact with these characters across text, voice, image, and then video is coming very, very soon. And I think an important part of what I was saying about trying to be true to that, really trying to appeal to a billion people, is that we have that offering, which we'd consider relatively Web 2. And we're pretty upfront about that and proud of that in many ways, because we don't want to kind of have to shove our crypto offering into that same interface, which is meant to appeal to a billion people. So this, anyone can use it. You can pay using fiat, you can pay using crypto, anyone can use it. And that's kind of the money into the system. And then we have like kind of an upcoming offering where it's more the crypto side. And that's a lot more about ownership of these characters and how you can essentially monetize these characters, which are agents, and make money from that. And that's where like a lot of tokens and Web3 kind of components come in. And that's where people can monetize it. So it's this kind of belief of ours that you can centralize the work and the development and you can decentralize the reward. That's where we think the kind of sweet spot is in being this sort of Web 2.5 offering.
Very exciting. You've touched on quite a few topics there, and I'm going to get back to one of them in a second. But just sort of explain to me at a very high level overview what the user journey looks like. So if I go onto your website, for example, and I scroll down, I see some of those avatars that you mentioned a second ago. And one of them I noticed is sort of a digital twin of Carmen Electra. So my understanding is that you can have digital twins, AI clones, if you will, of A-list celebrities. And then as a user, I can go on and interact with them, or how does that work?
Yeah, kind of getting onto the platform, we work with dynamic. So you can either connect an existing wallet and then an account is created for you associated with that wallet, or for anyone who either doesn't have a wallet, so more of those Web 2 users, or anyone which doesn't want to necessarily tie their kind of existing wallet to this type of application, you can just log in using Google or email or anything like that, and it creates an embedded wallet for you. So every user of ours has a wallet, which is pretty exciting. So over 100,000 wallets have been created with our platform. And then once you're in, you essentially, as you kind of said, can meet all these different characters and have spicy text, voice, and image exchanges with them. Some of them being digital twins like Carmen Electra, some of them being completely synthetic characters. And one thing which we're very excited about, we've actually just put out the announcement very recently, but Erica Koppel, who was the CMO of OnlyFans, has joined us as our CMO, and she's leading the charge in getting all of these creators on board. So her network of real-world creators from her OnlyFans days is kind of, I would say, the top in the world. And more importantly than that, her kind of experience of amplifying these creators, making them feel special as well, and like how to actually make the most of the platform, is really, really exciting. So that's kind of our Trojan horse for marketing this platform, is that you have these creators who are incentivized with an 80% revenue split. So we use the likeness of Carmen. It's all fully licensed with, she receives 80% of the revenue that her digital twin generates on the platform. And so she's obviously very incentivized to promote that character to her audience and in turn then the platform as well. And that's how kind of OnlyFans grew as well. And it's a form of decentralized marketing, but obviously not in like a kind of crypto-esque thing. It's more, kind of letting other people do the marketing for us, which is very powerful.
Exciting. So you mentioned there around 100,000 users or accounts have been created. You mentioned you got a partnership with Carmen Electra here. You mentioned that you've brought on some heavy hitters from the industry with a lot of experience. And I know there was also a funding round that went on recently. So can you give me a bit of a high level overview of those sort of milestones and how they all tie in together?
Sure. So we've just completed our seed round. It's 4.5 million round. Some of the VCs which came in, Tangent, Big Brain, Bodhi, Cosmos, Tagus Capital. We also have a number of angels kind of throughout the industry. So that's very exciting. And the platform launched at the end of October. So that 100,000 users is pretty quick growth from that point. And the fundraise was kind of around that point as well. But really, we've actually been building or conceptualizing this for quite a while before that. So I guess, as I kind of touched on earlier, my background being that marketing agency allowed us to basically bootstrap the beginning of this and mean that we could sit as a team and like really think about where we thought this industry was going to go for quite a while without actually needing to sort of build in a certain direction or take funding from someone, which kind of locks you into having to continue down that path. We had a lot of time to think about where we think this is going. And then now we can just build like in a very convicted way in one direction. So things are moving pretty fast now that the platform's out there, the funding's done. We're about to release another platform. Erica joining, the twins joining. It seems like quite a quick rise, but obviously there's quite a lot of work that's gone on in the background prior to that.
Certainly sounds that way. And talking about that sort of background, the groundwork that you laid in, were there any shockers along the way? Did something really surprise you, either in terms of the growth or the industry itself, or maybe the audience that you're marketing towards? There's got to be something that you've come across that you thought, wow, that caught me by surprise.
Yeah, the first thing that came to mind, it's not necessarily the biggest thing, but it was a shock for us, is we knew that entering the spicy space was going to be spicy and have like its ups and downs. And I think like we really came to that with the reason that it kind of weeds out the strong from the weak, and it's pretty difficult to operate in this space just kind of for operational reasons and like vice clauses and stuff like that. But it was on one of our like beta kind of test launches where we got our email system shut down by an email provider because they didn't work with us. And it's kind of, we knew the banks didn't like us. We knew these people wouldn't like us, but like our email provider didn't even like us. And we kind of then realized the entire world is against us and no one wants to see us win. So pushed us further to the kind of decentralized world. I think the other thing is, I think a lot of people think that this type of product is geared towards men exclusively. And I think that's quite a big misconception, because a very kind of generalized view of it is men are more visually stimulated when it comes to spicy content, and women are generalized more stimulated by narratives. And if you kind of think about it, what's available on the internet right now in a visual sense kind of trumps us right now. You can watch a 4K video of kind of anything under the sun, and we can't yet do that. But in a narrative sense, if you're currently consuming literature or audio, we completely trump that at the moment, because you can insert yourself into that story. It's completely interactive. So we've had a much larger uptake from female users than we expected. And I think that's like quite a underexplored opportunity for businesses like us. And it's kind of always been the golden goose for the spicy industry, but it's also just not reflected in the narrative. And there's part of me which has a bit of a pessimistic view as to why, like it doesn't kind of fit what people would expect. But yeah, it's also maybe because other projects haven't had the same uptake. But yeah, that was quite interesting to us, pretty promising as well.
Yeah, it's surprising to hear that actually. I wouldn't have expected that. Talk to me about the total addressable market for a product or a platform like this.
Yeah, so there's some existing precedent for it, but I was actually reading a tweet. I can't remember who it's by, but it just really resonates with us because I think I'm now just repeating the tweet verbatim, but the most exciting projects I think don't necessarily have a predefined total addressable market because they're kind of like at the forefront of creating that market. So we can't really look at something that exists and say like we want to get 5, 10% or 50% of this market, but we can look at different sectors which we want to touch. So the adult industry or spicy creator industry is in the tens of billions, the value. The creator industry is kind of equal, if not greater. Companionship also equal, if not greater. And then two kind of more crypto-y sides of it. The adult industry is the least publicly traded. The adult industry is the industry with the least publicly traded companies in the world. So that itself is such a massive opportunity because individuals have kind of been shut out from basically being long on this industry, more so than like marijuana, alcohol, gambling, kind of anything else. So that to us is like a massive opportunity, but then also like the payment side of this and the API side. So the way that we're kind of approaching it is like we're having to innovate a lot of different things to make this work in the way that we want it to do. And we can kind of see how, as we're going through this journey, we're identifying a lot of issues and like kind of holes or gaps where things are very useful. And so we kind of want to use our own journey to identify these opportunities, build something to solve it, and then like kind of bring that out to the rest of the industry. So something, for example, like payments within this sector, I can't put a total addressable market on that because it's huge. It's kind of infinite in many ways. So there just isn't really a payment solution for the adult industry, which either is user-friendly all of user-friendly, cross-border and cheap and not extortionate, essentially. So like some form of crypto solution to that would be absolutely massive as its own standalone offering, let alone when we look at like if you can take the entire adult spicy industry to an AI generated one, if you then kind of come out of just that industry and look at like AI influencing or just general like creator industry, all content essentially with AI is now just at like complete infinite scale. That touches advertising, it touches influencing, basically every single sector which creators touch, and then companionship as well. Once he's become more of that like girlfriend boyfriend type experience or her at the film. So yeah, it's pretty massive. It's exciting, but also a bit daunting sometimes that our kind of biggest challenges, I don't know if other projects feel similar ways, but we have so many things that we can do. That's kind of the challenge, is like focusing in on what can we do best right now to begin and like get a deep trench and then grow from there. But it sort of depends, to answer your very long answer to a question, but it sort of depends if we're talking about like a 1 year, 5 year or 10-year timeline, because I think this just like grows and grows and grows and yeah, can touch so many different industries.
Yeah, certainly the massive and very rapid rise of AI KOLs like AI XPT that we've seen over the last 3 to 5 months. Yeah, I think speaks volumes to your point about us not really being able to gauge how big something's going to be if you are at the forefront of it. But there are, as far as I'm aware, at least one or two Solana-based projects that maybe are mirroring some of the sort of initiatives that you are working on at the moment. Only One is one of them that comes to mind. So I wanted to ask you about competition. Do you see yourself more in competition with, companies like OnlyFans, or are you more competing within the Solana ecosystem or within the Web3 space with other companies like Only One? And as far as I'm aware, they don't have an AI clone component. It's only sort of real life creators sharing content on that platform. But yeah, how do you see the competitive landscape, and what are your sort of projections for the next 2 to 3 years there?
Yeah, I think it's a weirdly obvious project or like idea. So that's quite interesting because basically everyone we speak to is kind of like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, or like I've had an idea for that sort of thing. So there are a lot of people thinking about doing what we're doing. There's fewer people who are actually then kind of jumping off the porch and doing something similar to what we're doing. And then there's even fewer doing it well. And then I think we're kind of, I believe, in a bit of a league of our own. But I think there's aspects of what we do. So yes, Only One is a Solana-based project, kind of OnlyFans built on Solana. So in the sense that we are a spicy creator project on Solana, it's a competitor, I guess. But the fact that it isn't AI generated content, I would just not really put us in the same bucket as there are other projects which are in Web 2 and Web 3 kind of enabling these spicy conversations and content with AI generated characters. But they probably, or I know, aren't really doing the digital twin side of things. There are or were some projects in Web 2 which are doing the like digital twin side of things, but they don't have a token. So there's all these like people around, but nobody's doing the full suite where, kind of as we put in our fundraising announcement, the way we look at it is like trying to, or aiming to be the open AI of the spicy industry, and nobody is doing that. And I think that's the goal, that's the key. And I believe you have to be doing all of those different aspects to be successful in this space. You can't just look at the consumer side. You can't just look at the B2B side. You have to be doing both at the same time to kind of really have these synergies and like economies of scale. So yeah, I wouldn't say that anyone's doing it in the same way that has the consumer side. We also have an API side. So there isn't a multimodal API for kind of spicy models on the market, which allows others to like build using models which we've created. And there's nobody else really doing like the token side in the same way as us. And this kind of concept of being able to in the future own like essentially an AI OnlyFans creator or influencer. So yeah, I think it will be an increasingly busy space. It's pretty inevitable to me that this is going to be the future, kind of either on the fan side when we speak to users or look at the data, or when we have conversations with creators. It's just like it's 100% hit rate for us when we talk to creators that they want to sign up. And we can see challenges that businesses like OnlyFans are going through. They currently have some lawsuits where allegedly they're using human chatters to kind of do the conversations for creators. And there are a few lawsuits around that now. So we can kind of see a lot of signals that say this is going to be the future. It's a case of when that will be. And we just want to be like the incumbents that when kind of society or people and the technology catches up to make this really competitive with OnlyFans and potentially hopefully bigger, then we're like in the right place to do it. I think 5-10 years, this will be super, super obvious. And it'll kind of be like, yeah, of course this exists. But yeah, it might take a few years to kind of get to that same scale as OnlyFans.
Just to sort of stay on that topic for a second, because a lot of the founders that we interview, so early stage projects or post funding, or maybe they're going through a funding round at the time that we talk to them, they very often say, for us to be successful, we're going to have to be radically better or so different or have such a clearly communicated USP that we can convince people to change the way they behave in a Web2 environment and come over and start spending their money, giving us their attention and their time and their energy, and even maybe become a promoter at some point. So with that in mind, how do you see the sort of Web3 activation working? Is it an airdrop? What sort of incentive mechanisms are you going to throw in there? What does the next 12 months look like in terms of activations and incentives?
Yeah, so I think, again, the kind of interesting thing about what we're trying to do is that we have this dual side to us. We need to be far better than a platform like OnlyFans on our chat side. So that's a lot around like the quality of the content, the price of the content, the availability of the creators and stuff like that. So that is kind of a side to what you're talking about here. I think the other part is just making it a completely unique offering for, we see like these ownable agents, and that's obviously going to be a very hot space. There's the massive Web2 players playing within agents. There are a few like different agentic launch pads. I do think that will be a pretty massive market. And so differentiating yourself both in the quality of the agents, that they're not just kind of spewing, I don't know if I can, garbage on Twitter, or just having like some form of uniqueness about them. If everyone is downloading the same open source models or using OpenAI and putting the same kind of prompts into it and just connecting it to Twitter, it's all just going to be the same. Everyone's going to be very bored of it. And I think that's kind of already happened. So some of it is in the quality of the tech behind it. And so we've built out our own frameworks for this. We're not kind of using anything from any other project at the moment. And the other is kind of like the use case of that. So yeah, we see some KOL agents. I think there will be some trading agents in the future, but our kind of niche and our space, which is, I think, more interesting for more people, is this durability of being in a sector where you can own this agent that's able to earn from the adult space. The adult space has been around for thousands of years. It's multi-cycle. It doesn't like depend on kind of macro conditions. Adult content is something that people will be consuming kind of indefinitely, and there's always money to be made there. So having that specific niche where we can say this is the number one place to own a character or an agent and monetize that sector. And yeah, that we also have the uniqueness of your agent that you've just created automatically sitting next to the likes of Carmen Electra, Kylie Thorne, Rio Sage, like these massive creators. That's very, very valuable and very unique to us. So yeah, that kind of, it's all about for us the next 12 months, this ownership of characters that you can monetize, and then also being able to launch tokens around those characters for those characters to be able to either grow a community or some form of like, want to kind of leave this to individual owners of characters as well. But some form of like special experiences with the characters or whatever you can imagine, like an OnlyFans creator and how they engage their audience. We want to kind of enable through these agents and their associated tokens.
So I could theoretically go and present a bunch of videos of myself, pictures of myself, maybe have a few conversations. And does that essentially train a model where I would be given a digital twin, which I could then monetize on the platform? Is that how it's going to work for users?
If you were an existing OnlyFans creator, then yes. If you aren't, then so what you would do, unless you are an OnlyFans creator and I didn't do my
Not
research,
yet.
then you would just create a completely synthetic character that doesn't represent you. So we might enable what you're saying in the medium to long term, but there's kind of a pretty obvious reason why we don't do that. It's just like safety. So just verifying that like you are that person. We just don't really want to get into that kind of thing. So we work one-to-one on a personal basis with these existing creators to create these digital twins. And on the other side, if you aren't already a creator, we believe that the kind of golden goose here is being able to get the benefits of being a creator without any of the downsides of being a creator, so like privacy or whatever. So you can just create these synthetic characters that don't look like you or anybody else, but you own them. You can do kind of manage their lives. They manage their lives as well, and then you receive the vast majority of the revenue that's generated by them. So that same 80% split
makes a lot of sense. My next question, understandably, was going to be about potential privacy concerns, and you mentioned some of the larger, more incumbent companies dealing with lawsuits. So very briefly, touching on risk assessment there and maybe some of the privacy concerns. And if you could also let me know what type of data you're storing on chain, if any, and then let's tie that into the Solana component because it's fast, it's cheap. It makes a lot of sense to build something like this on Solana. So yeah, I'm curious how that risk assessment ties into the decision to be on Solana and to build on Solana as well.
So from like the privacy standpoint or the moderation and safety, it's really powerful to be able to moderate at the source of content creation. So a lot of platforms like OnlyFans will rely on created content and then human moderators to find anything that shouldn't be there and take it off. But obviously with human error, the odd thing slips through, which in a sector like this can be very, very damaging compared to most sectors, which like a small amount of slippage is kind of okay. So building these systems, which like every piece of content is moderated at its source, that it goes through our various systems, which it's always kind of a bit of a catch-22 because if we talk too much about what we do, it kind of tells people what to avoid and try and break. So don't want to go into too much detail, but both on the platform side before it goes to any AI and then the AI itself, and then before responses are kind of returned to the user, that's all kind of moderated there to try and find the balance between spicy and fun, but then like crossing the line. So the content itself, that's kind of what we do. Privacy-wise, there's a lot of encryption going on. So no user is tied to any of the conversations, so that'll never be exposed. We don't snoop on the conversations. There is training that happens on the conversations to make the AI better, but it's all anonymized, in a safe way. And then an interesting kind of challenge, which ended up being relatively easy to solve, but maybe I'm just kind of missing what the challenge was, is that a lot of people have been kind of talking about how you can have this open, transparent ecosystem, but then also with it being spicy, give people like the privacy that like, your wallet isn't just going to be exposed as like a user of this. And I think it was just this embedded wallet solution where you could just sign up using an email, your phone number, kind of anything, and it creates a whole new wallet and a whole new identity, not tied to anything to do with your kind of other on-chain identity. So I think that's like pretty effective. And then one of the reasons why Solana is so great is just the kind of the usability of it. So starting a whole new identity on chain on Solana is really easy. So dynamic phantom wallets, being able to like on ramp, off ramp is very, very simple on Solana. As you said, like the microtransactions really effective. So if we did, and over time we will bring more of the platform on chain than currently is, then tipping, that's the vast majority of the revenue that comes to these adult platforms is little tips and microtransactions. So characters basically over time being able to autonomously request these sorts of things or generate a piece of content that they send a preview of to a user and the user can then just like pay for that on chain. It kind of has to be on Solana or things like an idea of ours, which who knows if we'll do it, but something around like if you're holding more of this creator's tokens, they're able to like read your wallet, see how like kind of how invested in them you are, and then kind of react accordingly or treat you accordingly, which could be interesting. So I think it's just that these agents can operate a lot better and more autonomously on chain than off chain. So the more that we just bring the kind of operations of the business on chain, it just makes a lot of sense for us. Yeah, because our kind of goal is that there's just minimal human interference within this whole process.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like you've gone spent a lot of time going down the rabbit hole of risk assessment, which is what you'd expect if you're hoping to avoid some of the potentially damaging lawsuits. I'm sure that other competitors have had to deal with, and it seems that using AI agents or clones is a good way to get around that. You mentioned 100,000 users. You've got a decent amount of funding as well. What are the next top milestones for you?
I think everything kind of cascades down from being just the home for creators to go AI. So whether that's on like the technical side, our ability to kind of attract them, our ability to educate their fans as to why this is a good thing, being the home of creators, I think is the first big milestone that I don't want to focus too much on being like token price or something too related to crypto, because I think that can be manipulated. And if you focus too much on a KPI that doesn't actually reflect the health of a protocol or business, then it can be more damaging than, yeah, it can be damaging. So being the home of creators, I think, is our number one goal. And then just bringing out more of these initiatives where, as I mentioned, we really believe in the centralization of work and the decentralization of the reward, because we believe that the kind of age of people wanting to listen to a business's messaging is kind of dead. People want to hear from other people, creators or KOLs or just individuals. They know what their network wants to hear and what excites them. And so if you kind of decentralize the incentives and the marketing and make it basically so that whether it's owning a character or having some of the token, every single person is incentivized to like push this in some way or another to people that they know, that is kind of like just ultimate distribution. And then because a lot of these AI models are being commoditized and access to GPUs are democratized, kind of anyone can spin up some of these open source models. A lot of the kind of secret sauce or what the goal we believe should be in the space is just distributing the product as far as possible. So yeah, I think that's like the next step for what we're doing this year. We've got like the solid base now of a really great platform, got a decent number of users, great creators on board, more of those creators, which brings more users, and then all of that bringing more kind of funding and money into the ecosystem, and now beginning to open up that like distribution out to other people so that they can like turbocharge that distribution, then I think we're in a really great place.
Very interesting. And something that just popped into my mind there, you're talking about distribution. And earlier on, you mentioned that some of the high profile celebrities like Carmen Electra that you've got a partnership with are obviously incentivized through that 80-20 split that you mentioned to promote both the platform and their digital twin. Might we see a situation where, like AI XBT is a sort of echo to Zach XBT, the real version of it, might a slightly raunchy Twitter account of Carmen Electra's AI twin start becoming popular on Twitter? And is that something we're going to see then? More of these AI twins that are active and relatively autonomous on social media?
Yeah, it's if you can just imagine every single aspect of what a content creator does to earn revenue, we are automating every single one of those aspects through this agent. So bringing the IP, the contracts, the funding, the ability to market yourself and build a community, ability to kind of give back to the community with the tokens, ability to engage with the community, everything is coming on chain and being automated by these agent versions of the creators. They're fully on board with that. They want this to happen. They don't necessarily want to be doing a lot of these things a lot of the time. So yeah, you will see those creators on Twitter very soon in a quality way rather than being a kind of slot bot and just saying random stuff. And then also I can imagine some of these creators also wanting to launch their own tokens and kind of having this, tokenizing their AI version of themselves and its revenue and value and stuff as well, which should be fun.
Any hot takes on this space, on this intersection of spicy content and AI agents in the next 3, 6, 12 months?
Yeah, I think it will be the number one space for value creation for like crypto AI agents. I think the trading agents and stuff like that, there'll be some early use cases for it. I think the number of people willing to hand over their money to an AI to actually do the trading for them will be quite low to begin with. Yeah, it's your own money. It's something that you really need to trust, where this, I think, is a lot more fun. It can be spread a lot quicker and has like a day zero application to make money from. So I think this is like the number one space. And we've seen like how the adult content industry is a Trojan horse and incubator for pretty much every major technology. In our docs, we have I think 30,000 or 3,000 year history on like the adult content industry being an incubator for new technologies. So I think like the first wave of valuable crypto agents will be the spicy agents. And then I'm sure plenty of other industries will follow. I think a really powerful thing about crypto is like the ability to speculate and kind of like front run a lot of what's happening in the Web2 world. So what we're seeing now and what people are excited about, I think will happen, just not yet. And I think the first one will be spicy agents.
Exciting. And where do we follow along with all these developments then? Aside from Oh.xyz, where can we go to keep up to date with all the developments on Twitter, etc.? Is it Discord? What's the best place to be?
Our Telegram and X are the best, I believe, across kind of every platform which you can imagine. It's always the same, OHDOTXYZ. So O.xyz spelled out. Yeah, we have kind of various communities, various different places to stay engaged and have conversations around it. But I'd say keep your eyes on our X, particularly this month. A lot to come out.
Exciting. Nick, thank you so much for making time to talk to us today. I really appreciate it. And hopefully we can touch base in the coming 6 months, 12 months, and see what kind of spicy content is floating around on Twitter as well.
100%. Thanks for having me.